It's Super Bowl Sunday, 1993. The Dallas Cowboys are about to dismantle the Buffalo Bills, and for a sports fan in Texas, there is no bigger day of the year. Karen Lewis pulls into her driveway in Amarillo. The house is quiet, just the way her husband, David, likes it when he's locked into a game. She walks through the front door, expecting the smell of charcoal or the sound of the TV blaring. Instead, she finds a ghost story in progress. In the kitchen, 2 turkey sandwiches are sitting in the fridge, carefully wrapped. In the laundry room, the washing machine is mid-cycle, the water still warm. And in the living room, the VCR is humming, it's recording the Super Bowl, just like David planned. But David isn't there. Karen walks into the bedroom and stops. On the nightstand, she sees his wedding ring and his watch. David never took these off. He was a man of habit, a respected lawyer, a former judge. He didn't just wander away from his life. Now, here's where your brain is going to hit a wall. While that VCR was still recording the game in Texas, a man was walking down the center of a pitch-black highway in Moxee, Washington. He was 1,600 miles from home. He was wearing military camouflage he didn't own, and he wasn't wearing the glasses he needed to see. Trust me, it gets weirder. Before the Cowboys even lifted the trophy that night, David Lewis wasn't just missing. He was already dead. And it would take 11 years, a bored detective, and a single Google search to realize that the man who vanished from his kitchen had been lying in a nameless grave half a continent away the entire time. David Lewis wasn't the kind of guy who had a double life. In fact, if you looked up the definition of a stable, pillar of the community type in Amarillo, Texas, you'd probably see his face. He was a former judge, a practicing attorney, a Sunday school teacher, and a Boy Scout leader. He was the guy people went to when they needed things handled properly. Which is why the week leading up to February 1st is so hard to wrap your head around. It wasn't just a disappearance. It was a series of glitches in a life that had otherwise been perfectly programmed. It started on Thursday, January 28th. David was at his law firm when he suddenly told his colleagues he wasn't feeling well. He said he was going home to lie down. Standard stuff, right? But he didn't go home. Or, if he did, he didn't stay there. 2 days later, on Saturday, a $5,000 deposit was made into David's bank account. Here's the kicker. To this day, nobody, not the police, not his family, knows where that money came from. It was just there. A $5,000 goodbye gift from a ghost. By the time Super Bowl Sunday rolled around, the glitches were turning into full-blown errors. Around noon, a friend of David spots him at the Amarillo airport. He's not carrying any luggage. He's not dressed for a trip. He looks hurried, frantic even. Then, a local sheriff's deputy sees something even more bizarre. He spots David's red Ford Explorer parked in a lot near the courthouse. He sees David himself standing outside the car, taking photos of it. Why would a man need a photographic record of his own vehicle? It's like he was documenting his own life before it vanished. You know what's funny? Usually, when someone plans to run away, they pack a bag, they take their passport, they take their favorite jacket. But when Karen Lewis finally realized David was truly gone, she found his wallet and his keys inside the Explorer. She found his wedding ring on the counter. He had stripped himself of every piece of his identity. He left his car, his money, his family, and his vision literally, because his glasses were still at the house and he headed for the airport. He bought a ticket to Dallas. Then, he bought a ticket from Dallas back to Amarillo. But he never got on that second flight. Instead, David Lewis stepped out of the Dallas-Fort Worth airport and into a void. For the next 24 hours, the trail doesn't just go cold, it freezes over. Because while his family was calling the police in Texas, David was already standing on a highway in the Pacific Northwest, 1,600 miles away. And he wasn't the man they knew anymore. Trust me, This is where the story stops being a missing persons case and starts becoming a nightmare. February 1st, 1993. About 10:30 p.m. We are over 1,600 miles away from the quiet suburbs of Amarillo. We're in Moxee, Washington, a tiny town sitting in the shadow of the Cascade Mountains. It's a freezing, pitch-black Monday night. A couple is driving down Highway 24 when their headlights catch something that doesn't make sense. There's a man. He's standing right in the middle of the road, staring straight ahead. He's not waving for help. He's not trying to get out of the way. He's just there, like a glitch in the landscape. The couple swerves to miss him, heart in their throats. They manage to pull a U-turn a few hundred yards down the road, intending to help this guy or at least get him off the asphalt before someone gets killed. But by the time they get back to that spot, the worst has already happened. A Chevrolet Camaro, a car that, to this day, has never been identified, had come screaming down the highway and hit the man head-on. The driver didn't tap the brakes. They didn't stop to check the pulse. They just kept driving into the night. When the police arrived, they found a man who looked like he belonged to a different world than David Lewis. The judge from Texas was known for sharp suits and professional attire. This man was wearing heavy work boots and a full suit of military-style camouflage. This man didn't have a wallet, no ID, no plane ticket stub, nothing. And then there were the eyes. The police noticed something immediately. The victim wasn't wearing glasses. Now, if you remember from David's house in Texas, his glasses were found on the counter. David was legally blind without them. He couldn't see a foot in front of his face. So, how does a man who can't see, who has no car, and who was last seen in Texas 24 hours ago, end up standing in the center of a highway in Washington state wearing clothes his family has never seen? The local authorities in Moxee were stumped. They checked fingerprints against local databases. Nothing. They checked missing persons reports in Washington. No match. They had a body, but they didn't have a soul. So, they did the only thing they could do. They processed him as a John Doe. They took his photos, they took his DNA, which, in 1993, was basically useless for a quick ID, and they buried him in a potter's field. A nameless grave for a man who seemed to have fallen from the sky. Back in Amarillo, the Lewis family was living in a nightmare of silence. They were filing reports, talking to the FBI, and holding vigils for a man they thought was just missing. They had no idea that while they were praying for him to come through the front door, David was already 6 feet under the frozen ground in a state he had no connection to. Think about the sheer impossibility of the physics here. To get from Amarillo to Moxee in that time frame, David would have had to catch multiple flights or drive nearly 24 hours straight without stopping. And he did it all while being unable to see, without his ID, and apparently, while changing into a completely new wardrobe. It's the kind of mystery that feels like it belongs in a sci-fi movie. But for the Lewis family, the movie didn't end, it just paused. For 11 years. For 11 years, David Lewis's case sat in a filing cabinet in Amarillo, gathering dust. To the world, he was a cold case. To his family, he was a painful, open-ended question. But in 2004, the world was a different place. The internet wasn't just for chat rooms anymore. It was becoming a tool for justice. Enter Detective Pat Ditter. He was working in Washington state, not far from where that Moxee John Doe had been buried over a decade earlier. Ditter was one of those guys who couldn't stand an unfinished story. He decided to take another look at the unidentified bodies in his jurisdiction, but this time, he used a tool the original investigators didn't have. The Washington State Patrol's Missing Persons website and a little thing called Google. He started searching for missing men from the early 90s who matched the John Doe's description. He wasn't just looking for people from Washington, he was looking for anyone whose profile fit the vibes of the man found on Highway 24. He eventually landed on a missing persons poster from Texas. It was David Lewis. The resemblance was striking, but there was one detail that made Ditter sit up in his chair. The report mentioned that David Lewis wore very specific, high-prescription glasses. Ditter went back to the evidence locker. He pulled out the dusty bags containing the clothes the John Doe had been wearing, the camouflage jacket, the work boots. He reached into one of the pockets. He pulled out a pair of glasses. They weren't on the man's face when he was hit, which is why he was wandering blindly in the road, but they were there. Ditter sent the DNA from the Doe's remains to a lab to be compared with David's daughter. When the results came back, the mystery of where David was ended. The DNA was a perfect match. But as any true crime fan knows, where is the easy part? It's the how and why that keep you up at night. Because as soon as the police confirmed it was David, the timeline started screaming. David was seen in Amarillo on Sunday afternoon. He was killed in Washington State on Monday night. That's a 24-hour window to travel 1,600 miles. If he flew, where is the record? In a post-9/11 world, we forget how easy it was to move around in 1993, but you still needed a ticket. You still needed to show up. And remember, David's wallet and ID were found in his car in Texas. If he drove, he would have had to maintain an average speed of 70 miles per hour without stopping for sleep, food, or gas, all while being legally blind and having no vehicle of his own. And then there's the clothes. Karen Lewis looked at the photos of the boots and the camo. She was adamant. David didn't own those. He didn't even like those kinds of clothes. So, did David Lewis have a secret life in Washington, or was he a passenger in a journey he never chose to take? This brings us to the part of the story where we try to make sense of the impossible. We have a timeline that doesn't work, a wardrobe that doesn't fit, and a man who couldn't see the hand in front of his face. When you look at the disappearance of David Lewis, you're usually forced into one of three corners. Theory number one, the fugue state. Psychologists talk about something called a dissociative fugue. It's rare, but it's real. It's when a person's brain basically hits the factory reset button due to extreme stress. They forget who they are, they wander away, and they often adopt a completely new identity. It would explain why David left his wedding ring on the counter. He didn't know who David was anymore. It explains why he was wandering in the middle of a highway. He was literally lost in his own mind. But it doesn't explain the $5,000 deposit. It doesn't explain how he got a hold of military camouflage. And most importantly, it doesn't explain how he navigated 3 different airports and a 1,000-mile journey while being legally blind. Theory number 2, the secret life. This is the Breaking Bad theory. Was the Sunday school teacher actually involved in something dark? Remember, David was a judge and a lawyer. He dealt with the underside of society every day. Before he vanished, he told his wife he felt he was in danger. He told his family that if anything happened to him, they should look at his life insurance. Did David have a second life in Washington? Was the camouflage and the work boots his other uniform? It feels like a stretch for a man with a spotless reputation. But in true crime, spotless is often just another word for well hidden. Theory number 3, foul play. This is the darkest and, frankly, the most logical theory when you look at the gaps. Someone took David. Someone moved him. Think about it. If you wanted to make a man disappear, you'd take his ID. You'd take his glasses so he couldn't run or identify his surroundings. You'd fly him somewhere far away, dress him in clothes that aren't his, and dump him in a place where no one knows his face. The Camaro that hit David didn't just happen to be there. It was the final act of a coordinated erasure. But even that theory has holes. Why let him wander onto a highway? Why the $5,000? In 2004, David's remains were finally flown back to Texas. He was buried under a headstone that finally had his name on it. But for the Lewis family, the closure was paper thin. They got a body, but they never got an answer. David Lewis is a reminder that we are all just one glitch away from becoming a ghost. He lived a life of order, law, and family. Yet he ended up as a nameless John Doe on a frozen road, 1,600 miles from the people who loved him. You know what's the most haunting part? 11 years. For 11 years, his wife and daughters lived their lives, celebrated birthdays, and woke up every morning wondering where he was. And the whole time, the answer was sitting in a dusty evidence locker in Washington, tucked inside the pocket of a camouflage jacket David never should have been wearing. It's easy to think we're in control of our story, but David Lewis shows us that sometimes the plot can change in the time it takes to record a football game. So, what do you think? Was David running from something, or was he taken? And how does a man with no glasses find his way across half of America in 24 hours? Drop your theories in the comments. I read all of them. If you want to dive deeper into the mysteries that the world forgot, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Nocturne Files. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and thanks for watching.